In the wake of two fatal shootings of black men by police, many African-American families are revisiting a difficult conversation, one they see as a conversation of survival. It's often referred to as the talk. African-American parents forced to confront the realities of being black in America and what to do when approached by law enforcement. Joining me now from Waco, Texas, to tell us more about that is Peaches Henry. She is the president of the NAACP chapter there and a mother of a 21-year-old son. First of all, let me ask you, there was Alton Sterling, then Philando Castile, and the images that we saw of Philando Castile literally dying in the front seat of his car, and then the police shootings in Dallas. What do you make of all of this?
Let me first start by saying that our hearts are broken for the 5 police officers and the wounded in Dallas as much as they are for these 2 African-American men who have been slain by police officers. We do not rejoice in the death of anyone. And this whole situation this week has been incredibly disturbing, incredibly upsetting for African Americans as simply human beings who mourn the loss of lives, and we think unnecessarily. So it has been quite disquieting. My son is 21. He is a college student and he's away from me. And so it makes it doubly upsetting because where I generally sit up and wait for him to come home when he's in town, when he's out of town, I don't know when he comes home or if he comes home. So it's been very upsetting.
Let me ask you, I want to talk more about, your son and what many parents, the kinds of conversations many parents are having across America in just a moment. But I want to go back to something you said about, feeling for the police officers' families. Has anyone suggested that you or other people don't have sympathy for the families of the police officers who were killed in Dallas?
I think that you can hear it and see it in some of the rhetoric that is broadcasted on the television channels. You can also see some of that in social media. That's not to say that the majority are responding in that way, but yes, you do see that as though they are somehow connected. We want everyone to go home at night. We don't want anyone to lose their lives, particularly innocent lives, and particularly the lives of police officers whom we do believe are there to protect us. And so, yes, you do hear some of that, though it is not a majority of the responses that I've been seeing.
Yeah. As the mother of a 21-year-old male, let's talk about that now. What kinds of conversations have you had with him about interacting with police?
These are repeated conversations. I'm a teacher, and I know that to get a point across, I have to repeat it to my students. And so this is a conversation that I've had repeatedly with my son. I review it with him and remind him. He has it on a piece of paper in the car, and I was delighted the last time I rode in his car to see that that piece of paper was there. And so this is a conversation that we have often with our children. Remember, if you get pulled over, don't take your hand off the steering wheel. If the officer asks you to reach for your registration, tell him that you're going to do what he said do before you do it. And when you are about to do it, said, okay, officer, I'm going to take my hands off the steering wheel and reach into my glove compartment and get my registration, which you asked me to get. So that is a conversation that we have repeatedly with our boys, and we're having it more often now with our girls. This is a conversation that I heard my father have with my brother when I was a child. It was a conversation that I heard my father rehearse about himself when he was a boy and when he was a young man. So this is a generational conversation that African-American parents have with their children.
How old was your son when you first had that conversation?
My son is a very tall young man, and because of that, he has always been perceived to be older than he is. So I started having that conversation with him when he was 7 or 8 years old. At 7 or 8, he looked to be 12 years old. So I had to have that conversation with him when he was fairly early. And certainly now friends of mine who have younger children, because of Tamir Rice, they're having that conversation with their children at even earlier ages.
So what do you tell him when he says, well, why? Why do I have to do that?
We tell him because if he does not behave in a way that is designed to help him survive an encounter with police officers, he might not survive that encounter. And that it's not because we believe all police officers are bad actors. We do not believe that all police officers are racist. However, whenever he gets stopped, we don't know which type is stopping him. We don't know if we have the community-minded, non-racist, non-biased police officer who is simply doing his job, or whether we have a bad actor. We can't know that. So in every situation, our children have to comply, and we have to teach them that. And we think that it might save your life, but more and more we're discovering that it doesn't necessarily save your life.
What do you think? Well, just one more question on that point, because I wonder how you have that conversation with a child, at the same time trying not to instill an unhealthy kind of anger in them.
You know, I think that we began that conversation very early to tell them this is about your survival. But at the same time, we tell them that police officers, for the most part, are the good guys. We know police officers personally. We go to church with some police officers. We interact with them. My son himself, excuse me, is a Boy Scout. And as a result, he has had positive interactions with police officers through that activity and others. And in the same way that I teach him that all people are not bad, I teach him that all police officers are not bad. And we have good varieties of teachers. We have poor teachers. And the difference is that encounters with the police can be life-threatening because they are licensed to kill. And so that's the distinction that I make. You know, speaking back to a teacher won't get you killed. Speaking back to a police officer has the potentiality of getting you killed. So that's a distinction that we make. And our children are discerning people. They understand that, but they also understand that they have to survive and that they know that this is a part of being African American.
All right. Well, there's so many more questions I could ask you, and I'm sure this is a conversation that will be had across North America and parts of the world as we all watch what's going on inside of the United States. Peaches Henry, president of the NAACP chapter in Waco, Texas. I know you've got some oppressive heat down there. Stay cool. Thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome.